Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's containerjournal.com program, brought to you by Techstrong and Kasten by Veeam. My name is Cody J. Brown, I'm the host of Techstrong Learning, and we have an exciting presentation for you today. First, I do have just a couple of housekeeping notes to cover. Today's session is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion, or you'd like to rewatch or share with a friend, the on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude our live session. If you have any questions, we want you to send those in to us using the Q&A tab, which you'll find on the right side of your screen. That's also where you're going to find the chat tab, where we want you to get to know your fellow audience members. Let us know your thoughts throughout today's program, or maybe just from where you are joining us. And of course, before we close out, we will be giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so be sure to stick around for the duration of today's program. Our topic is best practices for Kubernetes data protection on AWS. And I'm joined by Adam Berg, Cloud Native Technical Solutions Architect at Kasten by Veeam, and Mike Strassman, Partner Solutions Architect at Amazon Web Services. Adam and Mike, thank you both for joining me. I'm going to let you take it away from here.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We know your time is valuable, so hopefully we'll give you some really good, valuable information today. I am, of course, Adam Berg. I'm with Kasten by Veeam. I manage solution architectures for all of our key alliance partners, such as Amazon Web Services. So thank you all. And I'm also joined by Mike. Mike, so why don't you introduce yourself to the audience as well?
Sure. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Cody. My name is Mike Strassman. I'm a partner solutions architect with AWS in the storage segment. So I cover primary storage, data protection, and archive partners like Kasten by Veeam, and I help them build, market, and sell solutions that integrate with or run on AWS. I'm super excited to be here today to talk about Kubernetes data protection.
All right, so let's go ahead and just jump right in. I know we've got a lot of ground to cover today, and we do have a really amazing demo that we want to get to at the end, so you can actually see all the goodness in action as well. I do want to start here, though, with a little bit of where this industry is going. If you're obviously here, you want to hear about Kubernetes, and you understand Kubernetes is going to be this sort of next generation of architecture that enterprises and organizations are really going to be deployed on. And the analysts are out there talking to organizations, and what they're finding out is that over the course of the next couple of years, 500 million new applications are going to be deployed on top of Kubernetes. More than the last 40 years combined. I mean, the numbers are actually kind of staggering of what, where this industry is going with Kubernetes. 75% of enterprises are saying that they're going to be running containerized applications over the next couple of years. But, what we're really here to talk about is how do we protect all this new data and all these new applications that are being containerized and being increasingly deployed on top of Kubernetes infrastructure. And increasingly, organizations are understanding that their data protection tools and their data management tools that they've traditionally used for traditional infrastructure, either on premises or even natively deployed virtual machines on top of cloud infrastructure, just aren't adequate for protecting this new paradigm of containerized applications. And they're understanding that they need dedicated solutions for data protection. We're happy to be talking about that with everyone today. So what's actually driving this growth, right? Number one, organizations are finding more and more production use cases for Kubernetes and containerized applications. We're seeing more stateful-based applications and databases being deployed on top of Kubernetes. I think organizations are really understanding that the nature of what we call cloud native architectures really does translate into delivering better services and faster agility to organizations. They're able to deliver faster innovation by deploying cloud native principles, meaning that applications can be rapidly iterated on. We can get new features, new capabilities, bug fixes, security fixes into our production applications much faster by embracing cloud native development and deployment principles. Often you hear this terminology called CI/CD, right? Continuous integration, continuous deployment. That's really what Kubernetes enables us to get our applications out and deliver services to our organizations faster. We call this shifting left in the development cycle, if you've ever heard that terminology. So that's really what what's driving this innovation in this space. And we're here with AWS. AWS. Mike, tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing in this space.
Sure. Thanks, Adam. Yeah. So as you said, the Kubernetes market is growing fast. Customers are adopting this technology to run their applications, and we believe AWS is the best place to run Kubernetes. AWS has a lot more capabilities to run containers than any other cloud provider. The vast majority of customers that are running containers today are in the cloud, are running them on AWS. It's about 2/3. And I think that's because, well, most other providers have one offering, which is typically a managed Kubernetes offering. AWS has multiple. I think it's 3 or more, depending on how you count the solutions. And that gives our customers choice, and having a choice can accelerate their adoption of containers in Kubernetes infrastructure and solutions. Go ahead. Yeah, we're already there. So the choice of the container orchestrator and the Kubernetes orchestration tools are critical. And there's many factors that go into that. So one of the most common questions we hear from customers is, help me decide which container service to use. And the recommendation is always going to be the one that meets your operational and application requirements, and the one that you are the most comfortable running is the one you should choose. So from a Kubernetes perspective, AWS customers can choose between a fully managed Kubernetes solution that we call Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Service, or they could look at something like Red Hat OpenShift on AWS, which is another fully managed solution that is really good for customers that are familiar with the OpenShift Kubernetes platform. And both of these services are going to offer a broad array of compute options and deep integration with other AWS services, and they provide the global scale and reliability that people expect from AWS. And then digging a little bit deeper into EKS, Amazon's continuing to make substantial investment in EKS on AWS to make it the best place to run Kubernetes. But we've heard from customers that have requirements to continue to run workloads on premises, and they're looking at Kubernetes as a way to run those and provide portability across environments. So we've made 2 announcements recently that added 2 new deployment options for EKS. The first is what we call EKS Anywhere, which enables our customers to deploy Kubernetes on their own hardware in their own data center and get the same API consistency with EKS on the cloud. So with EKS Anywhere, that minimizes the friction for customers who may want to start with Kubernetes in their data center, or they need to have it there, but they'll be ready to move those workloads onto the cloud. And it'll be very easy to do that. And then we also have what we call EKS Distro, which is where we've open sourced the Kubernetes version that Amazon uses to run EKS and EKS Anywhere. It's the exact same version with the same major, minor, and patches, and it abstracts that complexity involved in packaging and bringing and distributing a Kubernetes release.
Yeah, I think this is amazing. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of what Kubernetes delivers is that it's an open source tool and can be run on your own hardware, can be run in the public cloud. It gives organizations developing containers the flexibility to deploy those containers on any infrastructure. Amazon and EKS is really embracing that by delivering EKS Anywhere to be able to run Amazon common Kubernetes platform wherever the customer wants to run it.
Yep, 100% agree.
So we're out there obviously talking to customers about Kubernetes and what are they asking for when it comes to data protection, right? This is critical data is increasingly being deployed on top of Kubernetes. What are customers asking for, and what are the challenges that they're trying to overcome when we start talking about data protection? Number one, they're looking for something that's Kubernetes native, right? Something that speaks native Kubernetes automation, workflows, and APIs. they're not looking for bolt-on applications to legacy architectures, right? They're not looking for the tool that they were using to protect their VMs or their traditional infrastructure, bolting on something that can dabble into the Kubernetes space. They're looking for something that understands native Kubernetes APIs and is natively integrated. They're looking for their data protection tools to understand the multi-layer consistency aspect of what they're needing in their applications, meaning that their complex applications are being deployed inside of Kubernetes, and they need to be able to create consistency points of those applications during data protection all the way through the application layer, through the Kubernetes layer, down to the infrastructure layer as well. So they need to have consistent data capture to make sure that they're not losing any bits of that application during data protection. We talked about Kubernetes, briefly, in the last slide about Kubernetes being this open source product. They need to be able to have freedom of choice in their data protection, whether that's on EKS in the public cloud or something like Amazon, the ROSA offering, which is Red Hat OpenShift on AWS, or on-prem with EKS Anywhere. They need to have tools that offer them the freedom of choice to move their application around or deploy that application wherever they want and get consistency across the data protection layer. And then DevOps speed and scale, right? Things are moving much faster in this ecosystem than traditional infrastructure. There's new capabilities being delivered all the time. Customers need their tools to also understand DevOps speed and scale and deliver capabilities, fixes, patches, security updates at that same speed and scale. So they, if they're delivering their application to their customers, new versions every week or every 2 weeks, they need their tooling to also deliver capabilities, fixes, and patches every 2 weeks as well at that same speed and scale, right? So the requirements here are much different than traditional tooling. So let's talk about, our product. Of course, I work for Kasten by Veeam. So Kasten is a division of Veeam that focuses strictly on Kubernetes native data protection. The product is called K10. So the product is Kasten K10 by Veeam. And we're laser focused just on Kubernetes. And we're delivering 3 main capabilities. And that's backup and recovery for all applications being delivered through Kubernetes. Application mobility, being able to move applications between any Kubernetes that's on-prem or delivered by AWS in the public cloud. So think of being able to move an application from EKS Anywhere, running in your own private data center, up to EKS in the public cloud, or maybe moving that from EKS over to ROSA, Red Hat OpenShift, in a completely seamless manner. And then, of course, delivering complete cluster disaster recovery. So this is something that I don't think a lot of people realize, that you still want to think about, how do I protect the whole cluster? How do I fail over an entire cluster should I have a disaster? And thinking about that up front, you can start thinking about the tooling that you might need to be able to, for example, fail over from one region to another. Not to throw shade at AWS, but a regional outage has happened in the past, and you might need the ability to fail over an entire Kubernetes cluster and all those workloads from one region to another region in a completely seamless manner. And Kasten K10 is delivering that capability integrated with AWS in cross availability zone. Replication is built in natively to our capability and our application. So Kasten K10 for AWS, right? So it works natively with AWS services like Amazon RDS. It's completely integrated into AWS role-based access controls and IAM capabilities, completely integrated with offerings like Red Hat OpenShift on AWS. We're delivering full application capture, integrated to the native underlying storage offerings from Amazon, including Elastic Block Storage, EBS, or EFS, Elastic File Storage. So we can natively take consistent snapshotting with Amazon API integrations. We can do, we talked about this for disaster recovery. We can integrate with native cross-region native replication backed by AWS. So we can do things like cross-region disaster recovery backed by Amazon cross-region replication. And we're delivering all of this, through the AWS marketplace. So completely integrated with the brand new Containers Anywhere marketplace. So we can actually deliver this capability through the Amazon marketplace, not only in native EKS services or public cloud services, but also delivered through to Amazon EKS on-prem, right, through that Containers Anywhere marketplace that we're integrated with. So completely portable licensing delivered natively through integration through the Amazon marketplace. So how do we work, right? So I want to get into a bit of the technical nuts and bolts of what a Kubernetes application looks like, and what does it mean to be a native Kubernetes application data protection tool. So the way that Kasten looks at an application that's delivered on top of Kubernetes is we look at an application in whole as an operational unit. We're able to completely understand the application because we're integrated into the native Kubernetes APIs. So we can see everything about that application. That's not only the pods that are running that application, but all the metadata as well that's associated to the application. Kubernetes applications are much more complex than traditional infrastructure. We've got things like service metadata. We've got secrets. We've got the networking configurations. We've got custom resources that can be created by the end user or that need to be captured as part of that application. So there's a lot of complex pieces of an application that Kasten K10 can completely capture, and then not only give you full application recovery, but we can also deliver granular recovery as well. So if you needed to, let's say, restore just a single persistent volume claim, or restore just a secret or a networking configuration, we can deliver complete granular recovery for any piece of an underlying application. So we're completely application-centric data protection tool for Kubernetes. And then as we deliver that on top of AWS, we're delivering completely hardened data protection for Kubernetes for AWS Kubernetes customers. So we can deliver architectures that span multiple regions, multiple availability zones, completely integrated into things like Amazon IAM, role-based access controls, Amazon S3, and then the underlying storage infrastructure, EBS and EFS. So we're built for Kubernetes delivered on EKS with native APIs, not only Kubernetes APIs, but Amazon-specific APIs. And then we're delivering this all, quickly and easily, right? So we mentioned that we're natively integrated into the AWS marketplace for easy deployment, but we're also delivering all this goodness with nice, easy-to-use dashboards, right? So, if you're not super comfortable with doing everything through CLI, API, and YAML files, we're delivering all this goodness through a nice, beautiful GUI that can deliver not only single Kubernetes cluster complete application protection, mobility, and DR, but multi-cluster application availability. And we'll take a look at this in our demo as well. You can get a single common dashboard for Kubernetes that are delivered through Amazon EKS Anywhere on-prem, EKS in the public cloud, or even something like ROSA in a single dashboard with global policies. And then we deliver all of this with that end-to-end integrated security. We're integrated with AWS's KMS key management system, AWS identity providers, and OIDC as well. So for complete robust security across the board. Let's take this to a specific customer example. So there's a top IT service provider out of the European Union called Soprasteria. It's a joint customer, and they're actually standardized on Red Hat OpenShift on AWS. They had a lot of different challenges that Kasten came in and helped them solve. So some of the specific problems that they were looking for is they didn't really understand how to do not only things like data protection, but they wanted to be able to do full cluster DR across regions. They wanted to be able to move applications seamlessly between all the clusters that they had deployed on top of AWS infrastructure. They needed to maintain compliance. So they had regional data availability that they needed to maintain compliance around, right? So the data needed to stay within certain availability zones, within certain geographic regions that they needed to maintain. They had upgrade issues, right? Migrating from Red Hat OpenShift version 3 to version 4. They were spending days or weeks trying to figure out how to move these applications. They partnered with Kasten K10 to deliver the solutions to all of these day 2 data management challenges that they had with their Kubernetes data on top of AWS infrastructure and Red Hat OpenShift. A quick quote from the CTO over at Soprasteria. He says, the Kasten K10 platform provided us with a simple, scalable solution that delivered the best data management capabilities for our AWS workloads. Right. So this is a massive IT services provider, standard on AWS for Kubernetes, and they standardize on Kasten K10 to provide all of the additional capabilities like data protection, app mobility, disaster recovery, and then upgrade capabilities for their Red Hat OpenShift environment. So this is a great use case, a great joint customer case study. We actually have the full case study. It's linked here below, but if you go over to kasten.io, click on customer case studies, you can read the detailed case study about how AWS partnered with Soprasteria and Kasten K10 to deliver all of those day 2 data management challenges. And one of these, the next thing that we want to talk about, and maybe Mike, you can spend a few minutes talking about this, is this is still a problem, right, Mike? Ransomware. This is still a thing that we need to think about. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd say it's safe to say ransomware is becoming one of the hottest topics in the industry. I feel like it's rare to go a week without hearing or reading about another incident. It's almost like it's becoming the norm to see headlines and news coming out about ransomware attacks and hear about another company that's suffering from an attack. So just a quick background about ransomware. In 2014, the National Institutes of Standards created they published a major framework for improving critical infrastructure cybersecurity. It has 5 pillars. It's known as the NIST framework. The pillars are identify, protect, detect, recover. I'm sorry, talking too fast. Identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And then today we're going to dive deep into the recovery pillar. Obviously, when we're talking about Kasten K10, and I think it's becoming one of the most important areas for customers to have an insurance policy and the ability to recover. And, the ability to recover is based on having a copy of your data that you can be certain has not been changed or deleted. So that's where immutability comes in. And that's why we created what we call Amazon S3 Object Lock. And Object Lock is the ultimate protection against malicious or accidental deletion of your data. It's data protected with Object Lock cannot be deleted by anyone. This has been third-party assessed. So for environments that are subject to SEC 17A-4 or CFTC or FINRA regulations, in compliance law, the protected objects cannot be, as I said, it can't be overwritten or deleted by any user, including the root user in AWS account. So the retention mode can't be changed and the retention period can't be shortened. So if you can't delete it yourself with root access, there's no way an attacker or ransomware can. And I can tell you, Adam, working at AWS, I've seen cases where a customer has applied object locks to objects in a bucket, and then they realize they didn't need that or they did it by mistake. And they'll contact AWS and ask us to help them out. And I can tell you the only answer is it can't be deleted. AWS can't do it. So it's very powerful and it's very effective.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what you need really in a true ransomware scenario. It's not, sometimes it's not just ransomware. We also talk about what we call insider threat data protection as well. You need to be able to protect your data against potentially a malicious insider. We've actually seen a rogue employee that had root credentials into a cloud account try to delete all copies of data, including the copies of the backup data, right? So you need protection against the people that have the root credentials to your AWS accounts, for example, right? And Object Lock is that guarantee against even those particular scenarios, right, Mike?
Exactly. Yeah. The threats come from a lot of different directions. And like I said, when I started, the key to being able to recover is having a copy of your data that you can trust has not been tampered with or deleted.
So let's talk about what Kasten is doing with Object Lock. We were actually the first Kubernetes data protection tool in the industry to support ransomware use cases with Amazon's AWS S3 Object Lock capability. So this is natively integrated into our product right within the Kasten K10 UI. When setting up your target location for backup, you enable immutability, and you can set your immutable time frame with a slider right within our UI. And we can leverage AWS's S3 Object Lock for immutability for data protection. And we really talk about data protection as being your last line of defense against ransomware. You've been completely compromised in your organization. Your primary data has been encrypted. I need to have a copy of that data that I know was 100% not touched by that ransomware, could not have been changed, modified, deleted, encrypted by that ransomware. And that's really what the last line of defense is here. I've got a copy that Kasten has protected of my environment up in AWS S3 Object Lock. I know that that data is good, hasn't been changed, modified, and I'm able to quickly recover that data through Kasten right back into my production environments. And I know that this data is good, right? And that's really what integration and ransomware protection with AWS and Kasten is all about, guaranteeing the availability of that data through this great API integration.
Yeah, and Adam, I was just going to add to that. I mean, that's like you're saying, it's a perfect example of the power of the AWS partner network and the capabilities that we bring to our customers through our partnership. So AWS is providing the underlying capability for Object Lock, and then Kasten is providing the tool that allows customers to use that and take advantage of it. So
exactly,
you don't have to go outside of Kasten and go figure out a way to lock your objects separately or manage the retention. You do that all through the Kasten tool. Very powerful, very simple, and very effective for ransomware protection.
Right. Yeah. It's almost a no-brainer, right? Within Kasten K10, enable mutability, set your slider. I want to make sure that I have 7 days of immutable backups or longer, right? Up to your organization. And then, I can guarantee that that data is immutable. One thing that we've also implemented recently in our version 5.0 release is actually alerting you to somebody attempting to tamper with your immutable data. So let's say you had a ransomware attack, or maybe even a rogue administrator, someone who's attempting to delete that data, even though it can't be modified, changed, or deleted. We'll actually alert you right within our UI that someone's attempting to tamper with your data, give you some early warning that maybe something malicious is happening inside your environment, or somebody even maliciously is trying to delete data that can't be deleted. That is another great integration that we have with AWS to expose that right within our UI and give you proactive alerts that something fishy is happening. An attack may be ongoing against your backups.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff.
We talked about Amazon EKS and EKS Anywhere, and I want to lead into our demo with this. All right, Kasten was a launch partner with Amazon EKS Anywhere when it launched last year in 2021. And the primary use case here is giving the customers the ability to seamlessly move Kubernetes applications from anywhere to public cloud, or vice versa, right? So one of the biggest use cases that we see with customers is, hey, I'm gonna leverage my on-prem infrastructure for dev test, right? Give all my developers a private cluster that they can develop against. But when I go to production, I need to move those applications up into the public cloud. Public cloud is much more scalable. I've got on-demand resources, but I want to be able to move my applications, especially my stateful applications, on demand up to the public cloud. And I need a tool for that. Right? There's not something that's really easily done in this Kubernetes space. So you need a tool out there that can move the application, but also change aspects of that application on the fly. Right. So on-prem, pick your favorite storage vendor or your favorite infrastructure provider. That's what is really underlying on the infrastructure. We call those storage classes, right? It could be something like NetApp, it could be Pure, it could be Cisco, it could be whatever your primary storage vendor. It could be vSphere, generic storage, right? But when I move that up into Amazon EKS, I'm probably going to be deploying that application on top of Elastic Block Storage or EFS. So we need to be able to change certain aspects about that application as we move it. And that's really what application mobility from Kasten K10 is delivering. the ability to seamlessly move applications from one infrastructure type to another, or one Kubernetes type to another, right? I can easily move from Amazon EKS Anywhere to Red Hat OpenShift on AWS infrastructure, right? That's a completely different Kubernetes distribution, and we can seamlessly make that possible with Kasten K10. And I want to demo that here with our demo. So just to set up to this demo, what we're going to be showing in the demo is an application deployed on Amazon EKS Anywhere, right, on top of vSphere in a private data center. And the use case is I'm going to be migrating that application up into Amazon EKS proper in the public cloud. On-prem is just a local storage array. Up in Amazon EKS, it is a elastic block storage as the underlying infrastructure for that Kubernetes cluster. So we're going to show you how we can move a stateful database, an application from on-prem up into the public cloud. So let's, I'm just going to go right to it. Welcome to this demo of protecting and migrating applications on Amazon EKS. We'll start in the Kasten K10 multi-cluster dashboard, where we have two clusters connected, EKS Anywhere on-prem and EKS in US East 2 for production. Here in the Kasten K10 dashboard, we'll start looking at our main screen and the applications that we have installed within our EKS Anywhere dev cluster. Our corporate website runs on our EKS dev cluster today, and it contains multiple pods with persistent volume claims. Switching over to our US East production cluster, you can see that no applications exist yet in this cluster. We're going to take a look at the K10 global resources and show that we have a global policy for data protection using Amazon AWS S3. Let's create our first global policy for the protection of our website application. Here in the Kasten K10 UI, we'll give the policy a name, select the snapshot frequency, and enable exports out to our AWS S3 location. We can select applications by name or labels. We'll select all of our policies and click Create Policy. Let's run this policy one time over in our EKS Anywhere dev cluster. This will protect our corporate website application. As you can see here in the Kasten K10 UI, we can follow the Actions window and the status of our data protection policy. Kasten K10 will run a snapshot and then export the application back up to AWS S3. Here's a look at our application running in our dev test Amazon EKS Anywhere cluster. We're ready to migrate this application into production, and we can use Kasten K10. Let's export this application so that we can now import it then into the EKS production cluster out on the US East 2 region. Let's create our first export policy, copy the encryption key, and we can watch the progress of the export here in the action window of Kasten K10. Once our export is complete, we'll switch over to our US East 2 production cluster and create a temporary import policy for this application. Give this import policy a name, choose Restore after import, and the power of Kasten K10 allows us to dynamically change the characteristics of an application on import. For this application, we will need to change the storage class because the storage class on-prem is different than what's in our Amazon cluster in the public cloud. Once we apply those transformations to the import policy, let's paste in our encryption key, select our S3 target, and click Create Policy. Once our policy is created, let's run this policy once. This will start the import and migration of the application from EKS Anywhere into EKS Public Cloud. Here in the Actions window, we can watch the progress of the import. Once our import is complete, you can now see the application dynamically show up in the Kasten K10 UI. Our application import is complete. Now that our application has been migrated to production, let's delete it off of our dev test cluster. Let's use our kubectl command to delete our namespace for the corporate website. Once the corporate website namespace is deleted, you can see it removed from the Kasten K10 UI. This application now only exists in production on the US East 2 cluster. And let's validate that our application is now running in this new cluster. And here's our website completely running now in our production cluster. The migration was easy and simple with Kasten K10. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that demo of how Kasten K10 can easily and seamlessly migrate an application running in EKS anywhere on-prem up to the public cloud and AWS EKS in US East 2 region, and then easily create those global policies across multiple clusters. Mike, you want to talk about getting started?
I was just going to interject really quick. Really sorry. I mean, it's if you think about where we started when I started talking about EKS on AWS and EKS anywhere, and how we're giving customers choice and the ability to decide where to run their applications, and inherent in that is, wouldn't it be cool if it were really easy to move an application between those, and if there was just a tool that would allow our customers to do that. And with Kasten K10, I think we've shown that. And you mentioned multiple times how easy it is and how easy the tool is to use. And not being a Kubernetes admin, but having had some time to use the Kasten tool, I can tell you it's very intuitive, it's very simple, and it makes this type of thing, which under the covers, as you mentioned, there's a fair amount of complexity with changing storage and moving between clusters, and it just makes it so simple and so easy. And that's what enables the power of EKS anywhere and Kubernetes, being able to run your applications where they need to be and being able to move them around. It's pretty awesome in my opinion.
Yeah, stuff doesn't need to be complex, right? We understand that for a lot of people out there, Kubernetes is sort of a mystery, but delivering, with the partnership between AWS and Kasten, we're taking a lot of the complexity away from you and delivering, complex capabilities really easily, really simply. And I think that's really the power of the partnership.
Yep, agreed. So I think as a next step, I'd like to invite everyone on the webinar to take a look at a self-guided hands-on EKS workshop if you're interested in that. And we also have, and there's a link on the slide for that. And then also, if you're interested more in like instructor-led training to help you ramp up on EKS and Kubernetes, that's available to you. And then we have things that we call EKS immersion days, where you could reach out to your AWS solutions architect and potentially get one of those going. And then we also just recently built a hands-on workshop that allows customers to use Kasten on top of EKS, and we're going to start scheduling those here shortly. So keep an eye out for those. So pretty cool stuff, and a lot of material available for people that want to learn.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, those training classes are really invaluable in those workshops.
Cool.
Yeah, and from a Kasten perspective, you can find us out on the AWS Marketplace. So if you've got a Kubernetes cluster out there already, just go ahead and search for Kasten. You can try Kasten completely free. You can find out more at kasten.io/try-kasten-K10. You can visit kasten.io/AWS. That's where you can find more of our joint customer stories. You can find our solution briefs. You can find more demos. You can get links to our AWS specific documentation from there as well. So you can find everything about the partnership between Kasten and AWS over at kasten.io/AWS. So with that being said, I guess we want to say thank you. And I think we're going to take some live Q&A now. Right, Cody?
That's right. So let's go ahead and just take them from the top. So our first question reads, there are free and open source backup solutions and object storage in the Kubernetes space. Why should enterprises go with a commercial product?
Yeah, I mean this is a question that we get all the time. Of course, Kasten K10 is a commercial product, but when you're talking about your company's most valuable data, number one, you're going to want to have an enterprise class data protection tool protecting that data. You want an enterprise 24/7 globally distributed support organization behind you. We're delivering capabilities that free and open source tools can't deliver. You might be able to find a free open source tool that might give you a command line driven backup, but you're not going to get full cluster disaster recovery. You're not going to get application mobility. You're not going to get native AWS integrations. You're not going to get a state-of-the-art user interface delivering not only all the capabilities through a UI, but also things like reporting and detailed metrics about what's happening within the environment as well. So definitely going to want to take a look at the product. We do have an absolutely free tier as well, a free edition that's community supported, but it's completely unlimited from a capability standpoint as well. So if you're 5 nodes and less, that's completely free option for you as well. So if you've got dev test clusters out there, if you want to try Kasten out, you can try it fully featured without restriction on your clusters that are 5 nodes and less as well.
Great, thank you so much. And I'll also remind everyone that there are additional resources in the handout section if you'd like some further reading. So our next question reads, how is Kasten licensed and is there a free tier?
Yeah, so I just mentioned that quickly. We do have a completely free tier. So if you are 5 Kubernetes worker nodes and less, Kasten can be deployed completely free with community support. That's fully featured, right? So we want everyone out there to be using Kasten K10 in their small dev test clusters. You can deploy us today. You don't even have to call us. You can just install us, and that free license is installed. We are licensed per. Well, you can license us in a couple ways through the AWS marketplace. You can do a per worker node license, and you can purchase those on a monthly or yearly or multi-year basis. We can also be pay as you go, right? So per hourly use case as well. So if you want to, if you've got the use cases, I just want to pay per hour. That's absolutely also enabled as well through the AWS marketplace. So we've got multiple different ways to license and use us, pay as you go, or a prepaid per worker node license, which is an all-you-can-eat sort of model, right? So we're not charging you more for the amount of data, the amount of applications, right? It's deploy as many applications as you want, as much data as you want to be protected. All you need to do is license the number of nodes in the cluster. So it's pretty easy. And there's only that one license tier. You get all the capabilities.
Great, thank you for that. So this question reads, we have over 50 Kubernetes clusters that we manage as infrastructure as code. Can Kasten be deployed as infrastructure as a code?
Yeah, so this is a great use case, right, for Kubernetes, right? We're seeing Kubernetes usage just explode, especially at the edge, right? So we've got customers that are deploying Kubernetes clusters, let's say at every point of sale location or every store. We've got government services deploying Kubernetes inside of every vehicle, right? And the data protection needs to happen, at all of these endpoints. So commonly deploying infrastructure as code is the new paradigm for cloud native, and Kasten embraces that deployment model as well. In fact, we were a launch partner with AWS's own infrastructure as code project for EKS called EKS Blueprints. So there's a fully open source product out there from AWS for deploying EKS clusters anywhere in the public cloud or on-prem called EKS Blueprints. And we natively have a plugin for that where you can deploy Kasten across, fully featured, fully configured Kasten K10 deployment in every EKS cluster being deployed as infrastructure as code natively. And we've partnered with AWS on that. So you can actually just Google EKS Blueprints, and our solution is fully open source out on GitHub for infrastructure as code. But we also can integrate natively into all your other tooling for infrastructure as code as well.
So we do have a couple of questions that I know were answered through chat, but let's go ahead and just answer them on the air so that everyone can benefit from them. So does it provide integration with third-party VMs off-premise?
Yeah, so what we're increasingly starting to see, in terms of VMs that are external to Kubernetes, right? That's not what we're focused on, right? Kasten K10 is specifically for workloads being deployed inside of Kubernetes, containerized applications being deployed inside of Kubernetes. So external VM products, Veeam has another product called Veeam Backup and Replication, which we are increasingly integrating with as well. So you can have a common platform for protecting Kubernetes with Kasten K10 and VMs with Veeam Backup and Replication, but have a single UI and common dashboard for protecting all your workloads. And that's coming out in Veeam Backup and Replication version 12 in beta right now, due out in GA later this year. So you'll be able to have a common platform for that. What's also interesting is, and I'll talk a little bit about roadmap and futures, is you're starting to see virtual machines being deployed inside of Kubernetes, right? So this is it's kind of strange, right? Now, traditional like Linux and Windows operating systems being deployed as VMs inside of Kubernetes. And that's sort of the future, I think, where Kubernetes becomes the overall management layer for everything, containers and VMs. So you will see eventually Kasten being able to protect virtual machines being deployed inside of Kubernetes as well. And a popular open source tool for that is called KubeVirt. So if you do Google that, KubeVirt is a way to deploy Windows and Linux VMs inside of Kubernetes. So it's pretty interesting where the industry is going here.
My head just exploded, Adam. So
yeah, it's
I don't know if I can participate
wild out there. Yeah. If you start looking at where this industry is going to be 2, 3, 5 years down the road, obviously I'm a little bit biased because I work, in cloud native and Kubernetes, but Kubernetes can be a management platform for all workloads, traditional virtualized workloads, as well as containerized workloads. So you might see Kubernetes is sort of taking over the world and EKS being, the de facto way to deploy all applications in the future.
So can Kasten back up persistent volumes attached to EKS or AKS clusters?
Yeah, the answer is yes, right? So Kasten's got the biggest ecosystem of supported Kubernetes distributions and infrastructure in the industry. Basically, we work in every Kubernetes distribution that's what we call CNCF certified distribution. Right? That's about 80 to 90 different Kubernetes distributions. Right? This is open source, so you see a lot of fragmentation in the space. So you need a tool that can work in every Kubernetes distribution your organization might deploy. Right? I think multi-cloud and multi-hybrid cloud is sort of the de facto way to deploy Kubernetes. So you want a tool like Kasten that can protect your applications wherever they live, and then whatever infrastructure you decide to run underneath that Kubernetes, Kasten's got the largest ecosystem of validated and supported partners in the industry as well. So you can pretty much guarantee that Kasten's able to protect those applications if it's inside Kubernetes, no matter what infrastructure you decide to run that Kubernetes on.
So when it comes to data recovery, what is the average and expected RPO and RTO?
Yeah, I mean, we get this a lot, right? And the answer is always, it depends. There's no, what Kasten is really doing is making API calls a lot of the time. And we're really dependent on how fast does the infrastructure respond to those API calls. So when we want to recover data from a certain infrastructure provider, like EBS, we're issuing those calls to bring that data back, or if it's coming back from S3. So depending on the level of service that you have there, how much data we're bringing back, right? That could be sort of the limiting factor in how fast that data comes back. From a policy standpoint, or from a data protection policy standpoint, you schedule our data protection points. You could create policies that protect your data and create native snapshots every 5 minutes, for example, right? So those RPOs could be very, very small. From an RTO recovery time objective, it's really dependent on the infrastructure at that point.
Great. So that seems to be the last question that we've received. So I'll go ahead and give away a couple of gift cards and then give you guys the floor one last time while we wait for any last second questions. So I'd like to remind our audience that this session was recorded. So following this panel, you'll receive an email with a link to access the recording on demand, or you can find the recording living on the Container Journal website at containerjournal.com/webinars, and just be sure to look in the on-demand section. And as far as 4 winners of our $25 Amazon gift card drawing, we have Robert F., Oscar C., J.S., and Roland O. So to our 4 winners, congratulations. Please keep an eye on your inbox to claim that gift card. But if you don't happen to see that email, just check your spam folder. So not seeing any more questions coming in. Adam, Mike, do you have anything you'd like to leave our audience with before we close?
Mike?
I just want to say thank you. So Adam and Kasten, thanks for the partnership. It's been awesome to work with you and awesome to work with the team. Cody, thanks for the invite. And for everyone that joined, thanks for taking the time. I really enjoyed participating in this today.
Yeah, I just want to mirror that. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I just want to leave you with one last thing. One last thing that Kasten is giving away to the community, completely free, is a learning platform for Kubernetes. And you can find that at learning.kasten.io. At learning.kasten.io, you can start your Kubernetes learning journey out there and learn about deploying your first clusters, learning about deploying your first applications, learning about storage, infrastructure, and security, all with real live Kubernetes clusters in your browser. You can earn certifications and badges and awards by taking the labs in there. And this is real Kubernetes clusters. It's not PowerPoint. It's not YouTube. Head over to learning.kasten.io. Start your learning journey today, and then come back and talk to us. Right, we're here to maintain a dialogue, and we're always available to answer any questions going forward.
Well, Adam and Mike, thank you so much for joining us and running us through all of this. I really appreciate the time that it takes out of your busy schedule to put these together. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I'd like to thank Kasten by Veeam for sponsoring today's webinar. And of course, I would love to thank our audience. We really appreciate you spending time with us today. We ask for one extra moment of your time to fill out a brief post-webinar survey that should pop up on your screen here in just a moment. But otherwise, we do hope to see you all at an upcoming Techstrong Learning program. Everyone, have a great rest of your day.